Welcome dear students. Today we are going to discuss the module of sericulture, which is part of the skill enhancement course or ACC, coming under the zoology honors UG syllabus for the third semester students. But before going to the core part of the discussion on this particular topic, we will be focusing on the probable outcomes after pursuing or after getting to know the topics of this particular course. So these are the probable learning outcomes. After the completion of this particular course, you will be getting to know about the silkworm biology, you will be getting to know about the entomology, parasitology, moriculture or the mulberry cultivation, a little bit of this particular topic, as well as the technology and instrumentations which are associated with this particular topic. You will also get the motivation to join the future professional goals like becoming a sericulturist, becoming a sericulture assistant or instructor assisting the farmers and the agro-based industries. You can also join the silk industry and contribute over there. You can be a researcher related to the sericulture. You can be an entrepreneur developing multifaceted type of professional goals. You can also be an agro management expert, and also you can be a good silk trader becoming a business personality. Next, let us see what are the topics which we are going to discuss in this particular course. So before going to the core part of the discussion, we must consider to know what is sericulture is all about. Then we will be talking about the global, the country specific, as well as the scenario of sericulture in our own state. Then we will be getting to know about the silkworm biology, talking about the taxonomy of the silk moth, talking about the life cycles and the morphoanatomical features of the silk moth, as well as different stages of the silk moth life cycle while exhibiting the metamorphosis. We will also consider the peculiarities of the silk gland while talking about this particular aspect. Next, we will also be coming to know about different properties of silk, like the biochemistry of silk, the voltainism of silk, and the types of silk which we find in our Indian market or in Indian context. Then we will be coming to know a little bit about the moriculture or the mulberry cultivation, which is inevitably associated with this particular practice. Then we will also concentrate on the cultivation procedure of mulberry. After that, we will be talking about the different procedures and protocols and rearing methodology of the sericulture, then the cocoon rearing, stifling, reeling, etc. procedure, and lastly, we will be coming to know about the prospects of sericulture as a profession, as well as the prospect of sericulture from the economic development to the professional attributes, not only in our country but also in our state. Now, let's start the discussion on this particular topic. So, let's go back to the introductory note of the sericulture. So, the sericulture word came from the Greek word serikos, which has two parts. One is the silk and another one is the culture. So, seri means silk in Greek literature, as well as the kos means the culture. Sericulture, in simple words, we can say that it's a commercial production of silk through silkworm rearing. And we can also include the very important part of the sericulture, that is the mulberry cultivation, which is regarded as the moriculture. Sericulture is a very important agro-based industry which can contribute in an excellent way as a cottage industry. Then sericulture was very significant from the era of civilization. We can see that sericulture was in practice even in the time of Indus Valley civilization. So sericulture is nothing new or nothing modern practice, but we can give a global perspective, or rather a global scenario of modern trading and modern utilization of the economic perspectives. So this is more importantly, this is an environment friendly industry which can contribute, especially the country like us where a huge number of youth population are there, in the employment of that particular youth population. So here I have displayed the 4 different types of silks which are found in our country. This is the Mulberry silk, the Eri silk, the Muga silk, and the Tassar silk. So these 4 silk types are traded over the country as well as throughout the planet. The history. Before going to the present scenario of sericulture, we should consider how old or how historically sericulture was important for the whole human civilization. We can get the references of sericulture in even Rig Veda, the oldest scripture of this particular world. So we can see there are different words like Urna, like Suklambar, Pitambar, Pitokansya, Pitovasa, etc., which were referring to different types of silk cloths which were used to produce in the Indus Valley civilization. In Ramayana, we also found that Sita used to receive a lot of silk gifts during her wedding ceremony, as well as she also received an Amlan Vastra which she carried for her 14 years of exile or Banavas, and this particular sari was gifted by the Rishi Patni Anasuya. Then in Mahabharata, we got the mention of different silk products in different phrases, or rather in different verses. Tulsidasa's Ramayana, as well as different types of Purana like Vishnu Purana, Kalika Purana, Harivansha Purana, Lakshmi Purana, Shiva Purana, Padma Purana, etc. also referred the practice of sericulture in our country in an indirect way. But eventually, the practice of sericulture became globalized with the discovery of the cocoon and the silk which can be obtained from that particular cocoon, and that was an accidental event. Yes, that was very interesting story, because the Chinese Empress Silingji, she was taking her cup of tea and accidentally a cocoon dipped into the teacup, and she discovered the way of getting the silk threads from that particular thing. And this way she discovered the way of sericulture, and it became very much popular throughout the country. And that's why she is considered as the goddess of silkworms till date. China then started to excel in the sericulture, and it started to export the finest silk to different parts of the world, especially the Babylon, Nivena, etc., for around 3000 years. This particular monopoly made the Chinese civilization very wealthy, and this particular monopoly was a kind of bone of contention for the other civilization also. So the Byzantine Emperor Justinian sent a secret team with some secret agents to know the reality or the procedure of sericulture, as well as 2 Persian monks also went to the Chinese civilization to smuggle the cocoons and worms, and they brought those things to the European civilization. King Khotan also married King Khotan from Tibetan civilization or Tibetan dynasty also married a Chinese princess, where the Chinese princess brought the cocoons to the Tibetan civilization, Tibetan dynasty, and there manifested the way or the procedure of sericulture. We can also get the references from the Confucius scriptures. Confucius mentioned that there used to happen, there was a practice of sericulture beside the Huanghe River, especially at the Santung or the Shandong region of China, especially around 2200 BC. Then the Chinese immigrants started to settle at the Korean regions, and there the sericulture also manifested with their practices. During the 3rd century BC, Seridamas, a general army of the Empress Singhu Kongo, also invaded Korea, and he brought the practice of sericulture and some sericulturists to the Japan, and this way the sericulture propagated to Japan also. This particular way or the method was also known to the Mediterranean region of the planet, and this way the sericulture migrated, the practice of sericulture migrated to Africa, Spain, Sicily and the other parts of the globe. Here you can see that this is the Silk Route, which is exhibiting how the silk is getting exported from China to different parts of the country, especially the European continent. Now let us consider what was happening in our country. We used to know about the sericulture from the time of Indus Valley civilization, but the sericulture as a business, as a trade, or as a kind of modern trade manifested with during the time of Alexander, who gained the knowledge of sericulture from India, as well as the trade between the Europe and the India started to manifest after the invading or after the colonization of the British people. Then Tamrolipto was very famous. You know that Tamrolipto is a dock which used to be used in the historic period, and this dock used to use for the trade of the silk, for the transport or export of the silk to Egypt as well as to the Rome. Ptolemy also mentioned that we used to have great practices of sericulture in Odisha, and we used to trade that particular silk to Rome and different parts of the Europe. Yuan Sang also appreciated. You already have the idea, or you already have studied about Yuan Sang and King Harshavardhana during your history classes, and Yuan Sang appreciated the initiatives of King Harshavardhana regarding his initiatives related to the silk trade. Tipu Sultan also started importing mulberry from our Bengal, that was undivided Bengal, including the Bangladesh of today, as well as the seeds from China to manifest or to set up the practice of sericulture in his own capital, that is the Mysore. Kashmir was very famous zone for sericulture because of the climatic condition, and the silk which used to get produced from Kashmir was a little bit different from the other parts of the country, and the sericulture of Kashmir also got an excellence, especially during the rule of Maharaja Ranbir Singh. Now coming to the scenario of our own state, that is a Bengal scenario. Bengal sericulture is not something contemporary or new. Bengal, we Bengali people used to know about the sericulture from a very old period, and it was that much old that we can see or we can find a reference of Bengal sericulture in Kautilya's or Chanakya's Arthashastra. During the Mughal period, the sericulture also manifested a lot, and especially with the initiatives, with the motivations from the Nawabs of Murshidabad. We can see that while East India Company also established a factory. You can see that this is the map of that particular factory, which used to know as Kashim Bazar factory near the Kashim Bazar fort, and the factory was a prime location or prime site for exporting, for processing the silk which had been produced by the sericulturists of Bengal. This was so much significant for the British East India Company that the company even sent Mr. Wilding, a silk expert from Europe, to investigate the deformities or some sort of defects of the Bengal sericulture or Bengal silk products in order to give an excellence to the sericulture of West Bengal. Now, going straight back to the biology of sericulture, we came to know about the history of sericulture, and this particular history is very significant to realize how important is the sericulture in contributing the economic perspectives to our own civilization as well as in modern days. However, with the development of certain new types of job opportunities or new type of professional goals, the practice of sericulture is becoming a little bit obsolete, but it has a really big kind of excellence or potential to develop entrepreneurship as well as youth employment. So to know more about that, we have to wait for the certain modules, but let us focus on the taxonomy of the silk moth. So silk moth is belonging to obviously the kingdom Animalia, and the moths are the arthropod organism, because you know that the moths are provided with jointed appendages. The moths are provided with the tagmosis, that is, the body is divisible into head, thorax and abdomen, as well as the moths are belonging to the class Insecta. So belonging to the class Insecta, it will be carrying typical characteristics of an insect, that is presence of 4 wings, a pair of 4 wings and a pair of hind wings, as well as presence of 3 pairs of appendages, 3 pairs of jointed appendages or legs. This is belonging to the subclass Pterygota. The insects which are belonging to the subclass Pterygota are provided with wings, and obviously because of having the 4 wings and hind wings, the silk moths are belonging to the subclass Pterygota. The moths are coming under the order Lepidoptera. If I ask you guys that what other group of insects are belonging to this particular order, hopefully you can answer. The obvious answer is the butterflies. So butterflies and moths both are belonging to the same order, that is the Lepidoptera, having some common properties, and I will request you to investigate, to search for what are the similarities and what are the dissimilarities between a moth and the butterfly in your later time. Next, we can find that there is a superfamily Bombycoidea. This particular superfamily or the species under this particular superfamily are mainly cultured in our own country. Then the family Bombycidae and Saturnidae. These 2 families are very significant, especially for the Indian context, under which different genera and different species are used from the time imperial for the purpose of sericulture. So under this particular family Bombycidae, there are 2 species. One is the Bombyx mori, another one is the Bombyx mandarina, out of which the Bombyx mori is the most popular type of species which had been domesticated and which had been used for the sericulture for time imperial. It can produce different types of silk, which we will be talking later on. Let us focus on the family Saturnidae also. Under the family Saturnidae, there are multiple species like Antheria mylitta, Antheria prolei, Antheria friti, Antheria parnei, Antheria yamamai, Antheria asamensis, Philosamia cythenia, Samia cythenia, Samia and or Philosamia cythenia rixini. So there are a lot of species coming under this particular family Saturnidae, but you should remember that all the species are not at all favorable or suitable for the sericulture, because not all the species can be domesticated, not all the species can give rise to best quality silk. But however, we need to know the biology of this particular species, which are mainly used in different civilization or rather in different countries for the purpose of sericulture. Now coming to the life cycle of Bombyx mori, we know that we will be isolating the silk threads from the cocoons of the Bombyx mori. But before going to that particular portion, we need to have a clear-cut idea about the life cycle of the Bombyx mori. Why we are considering only Bombyx mori? Because you know that in biology, we generally try to consider a model organism, and keeping that model, we used to talk about that particular taxonomic group or the features of those species which are related to that. And not only that, Bombyx mori is the most popular type of species which is found in our India, and we from the time imperial are using this particular species for getting our own silk. So it is showing a typical holometabolous type of life cycle. What is holometabolous type of life cycle? In case of the holometabolous type of life cycle, we can see the whole cycle of different stages of this particular insect. That means it is showing complete metamorphosis. It is exhibiting the egg phase, the larval phase, the pupal stage, as well as the imago stage. So this is the egg, or these are the eggs rather. So from the eggs, the newly hatched larvae are emerging, and after passing through 5 instar stages, the larvae will be developing gradually it will be showing the gradual growth and development. We will be discussing in details in later slides. And then after, it will be forming the cocoon or the shell. This particular cocoon is very important for us because we will be obtaining the silk thread from this particular cocoon. And after that, there will be the imago stage or the adult stage, and which will manifest this particular cycle. So let us see what are the peculiarities of the eggs of the Bombyx mori. Bombyx mori eggs are tiny, round, it may be white in color or it may be pale yellow in color. But the eggs may get changed into dark brown or purple coloration. So let's see what are the features of the eggs of Bombyx mori. Bombyx mori eggs are tiny, round, it may be white or pale yellow in color and may change into dark brown, or even because of the environmental condition or climatic condition, it may get changed into a purple color by deepening of the serosal pigments of the epidermal covering or the external covering of this particular eggs. The eggs are very tiny. These are approximately 1 to 1.3 millimeter in length, 0.9 to 1.2 millimeter in width, and about 2000 eggs may weigh only about 1 gram. Okay, so these eggs are of two types. These are diapause type or non-diapause type. Now the question is, what is diapause and what is non-diapause? Some eggs may readily get into hatched out into the larval stage, but some eggs will remain dormant for different season until and unless it is getting a favorable environmental condition to hatch out into the larval stage. We will be talking in details about these types of eggs later on, and these eggs will be exhibiting the property of volatilism that is also been discussed in the next slides. Now coming to the features of the larvae will be coming out of the non-diapause type of eggs, and after hatching it will look like, or it will be approximately 0.3 centimeter in length. The total incubation period for the non-diapause type of eggs are about 10 days. And these type of larvae are voracious eaters because they need to grow, or they need to go for the development of their bodily structures in a very rapid velocity or rapid speed. So they are voracious eaters. They will be eating on the host plant's leaves, and we can see that the larvae or the larval body plan is typical insect body plan, which is divisible into three parts: the head, thorax, and the abdominal region, where the thoracic region is divisible into three major segments. One is the prothorax, the anterior most part of that, then the mesothorax, the middle portion of that thoracic region, and the metathorax, that is the posterior part of the thoracic region, followed by an abdominal region. The larvae will have two layered skin. The outermost layer is consisting of a cuticular layer, whereas the next layer beneath the cuticular region is regarded as the hypodermis. The cuticle is made up of a special type of protein called chitin. You have already probably came across with this particular word. As well as the cuticular layer is also provided with some sort of waxy substances. There are certain types of nodules which will be giving patterns to the body surface of the larvae, and you can identify the species of the Bombyx mori, or rather other species. You can differentiate also based on the patterns, based on the bodily features of these larvae. There are four pairs of tubercles present over there. One is the subdorsal, then the supraspiracular, the infraspiracular, and the last one is the basal. So some more features related to the larvae of the Bombyx mori. Bombyx mori head is provided with a lot of appendages. There are 5 segmented antennae. There are well-developed mandibles for the mastication of the food. You know that this particular species, this particular insect group is provided with a chewing type of mouth part, which will chew the host plant's leaves with the uses of mandibles. Then there are maxillary lobe and pulpi, which will be used as our tongue, okay, which will be used for the tasting of the food. So they have a very good preferences on the host plants, okay. Then the labium, medial epicranial suture, clypeus, labrum, 6 pairs of larval ocelli or eyes. They have compound eyes, okay, and the spinnerets, etc. The thoracic region is provided with ventrally located some conical shaped true walking legs which will be bearing sharp claws so that it can move easily on the rough surfaces. The abdominal portion is provided with 11 segments, out of which the last segment, that means the 9th segment, is a fused segment of 3 segments, okay, and the 3rd to 6th and the 9th segments will be bearing the fleshy, unjointed, protruding walking legs. So not only the thoracic legs are there, but also abdominal legs are there. But you should remember that the 7th and the 8th segments are devoid of any walking legs. Then there is also a caudal horn on the dorsal side of the 9th of the 8th abdominal segment. So this is a picture, or this is the diagram which is exhibiting the morphological peculiarity of Bombyx mori larvae. You can see that the whole body is divisible into head, thorax, and the abdominal region. The head followed by the thorax. The thorax is also consisting of the prothoracic region, mesothoracic region, and the metathoracic region. Here you can see that the abdominal segments are provided with the walking legs, as well as the thoracic region is provided with the walking legs. We can distinguish whether this particular larval form is belonging or is going to become a female adult one or a male moth, okay, by just observing the 9th abdominal segment. In case of the female, the 9th abdominal segment is provided with a pair of ischiotous foregland as well as a pair of ischiotous hindgland. But these ischiotous glands are absent in case of the male. But if you just observe the 9th abdominal segment of a male larvae, then you can get that there is a gland called Herold's gland that will distinguish itself from the female larval stage. Now the instars of the Bombyx mori larvae will be exhibiting 2 prominent phases. Every instar stage will be exhibiting 2 prominent stages. First is the feeding stage. Here the larval stage or the larvae will be behaving as voracious eaters. It will consume more and more food or nutrients so that the growth and development of this particular stage is manifested, and at the end of that particular instar stage it will be going for the molting. You can see that how the external cuticular layer is getting exfoliated from its body, and this is manifesting, or this is helping the larval stage to get developed into the further stage and at last into the pupal stage. For the formation of the pupa or for the formation of the cocoons, the larvae will be secreting some sort of silk through or with the help of some spinnerets from located at its mouth parts, and after secreting that it will form a mesh-like structure or web-like structure around its body, and later on this particular structure will be getting converted into the cocoon stage. This particular cocoon, you can see that this is consisting of certain thread-like structures, and you are right, this particular thread-like structure is our own silk which we need to obtain from this particular cocoon stage. Now the silk gland of the Bombyx mori, we need to concentrate on the anatomical peculiarities of the silk gland in order to understand why there are differences in the silk qualities. So this is the anatomical feature of a silk gland of Bombyx mori larvae. You can see that the whole gland is divided into 3 major portions. One is the anterior portion, followed by the middle portion, and followed by the posterior portion. We will be finding in later classes that the middle portion, posterior region, etc. will be secreting certain specific proteins that will construct the outer layer and the inner core portion of a silk thread. The Philippi's gland is supposed to contribute in the glossy texture of the silk, and the spinneret, you have already found that this particular spinneret is helping the larval stage to spit out, to secrete the silk in order to form the cocoon around itself. You can see that there are different types of silk glands, or there are differences especially at the middle portion of the silk glands in terms of the coloration, and the coloration of the mid portion of the silk gland will be contributing in the coloration of the cocoons as well as in the coloration of the silk threads which are obtained from this particular cocoon. Now going to the features of the pupal stage of the Bombyx mori, apart from the cocoon layer, there is a brown colored covering, and for the formation of the pupal stage, there is a pre-pupal stage which will help to dissolute all the organs which are not required further by this particular organism, and these organs which were present at the larval stages. The pupal covering is a soft white covering, but eventually you can see that this particular covering can get turned into a brown colored or even brownish black type colored upon hardening. This is a very thick oval white or yellow pupal covering is called the cocoon. We have already talked about. The cocoon is made up of the silk which we are going to obtain in the practices of sericulture. The pupal stage will be lasting for 8 to 14 days, and after which the imago stage or the adult stage will be slitting this particular cocoon and coming out of that. Though the covering following organs can be through the covering, we can see the following organs. So at the pupal stage, we can find certain organs like 10 ventral segments, 9 we can see from the dorsal view, and a pair of compound eyes, pair of antennae, developing 4 wings and the hind wings, which will be useful for the imago stage or the larval stage, different legs, 7 pairs of spiracles, which will facilitate the organism to respire. And you can see that we can even distinguish the pupa, male pupa from the female pupa by observing the male genital markings and the female genital markings at the 10th abdominal segment. Now coming to the last portion of this metamorphosis, that is the imago stage. So adult moths are very much important because the adult moths can only give rise to the new generation, where we can take the cocoons for sacrifice for getting our own silk. So we need to hatch, or we need to allow certain eggs to develop into the adult moths, because adult moths will be laying eggs and completing the whole life cycle. So the adult moth is following a typical insect body plan. Its body is divisible into head, thorax and abdomen. It is provided with a pair of 4 wings and the hind wings, and you can see that it is provided with antennae. These antennae is a very interesting kind of antennae. You can see that there is a feather-like appearance in the antennae, as well as a pair of compound eyes. So the Bombyx mori are pale creamy in color. You can see that this is looking very nice, very white, creamy type in appearance. The body plan will be following the general, not only the insect plan, also the Lepidopteran ground plan. Ocelli are absent over here. Antennae are conspicuous, and there are large bipectinate antennae. No feeding behavior. This is very interesting. The moths are devoid of any sort of feeding behavior. That's why moth will be conserving the energy it has obtained during the larval stage, and this particular energy will be stored inside the body for facilitating the moths in taking part in the reproduction or the courtship and then laying eggs. So moths generally don't fly high up, and they just conserve their own energy. Sexual dimorphism is visible in case of the moths. The male and the female moths will be going for copulation, and the males will be transferring the male gametes or the sperms to the female body, where the internal fertilization will be taking place. The males can transfer these things with the caudal end, with the projection, and the female can lay eggs, about 400 to 500 eggs at a time in a whole life cycle. Males are provided with a specialized kind of structure or pair of hook-like structure. These are known as harpies, and this type of structure will be facilitating in transferring the sperms or the male gametes to the female body. Copulation will be occurring within the 2 to 3 hours of the emergence of the imago stage or the adult stage, because I have already mentioned that the moths are devoid of any sort of feeding behavior, so it needs to do whatever it can do, like the reproduction and other purposes, within a very limited amount of energy stored inside the body. So after approximately 24 hours, the moths will die. So it needs to complete the whole reproductive cycle, laying eggs and other things within a day. So let us summarize the life cycle over here. So Bombyx mori, moths upon mating with each other, laying the eggs. The eggs may be of two types, the diapause type egg and the non-diapause type of egg. The non-diapause type of egg will be hatching out within 10 to 14 incubation days. Then after hatching out, it will form a newly hatched larva, and the larva is known as ant. Okay, so after the formation of the ant, it will be going for the first instar stage, followed by the second instar stage, third instar stage, fourth instar stage and fifth instar stage. And after fifth instar stage, it will be large enough to form the pupal stage and the cocoon around this. At the larval stage, it's a voracious eater. It will feed upon the host plant's leaves. It will conserve as much as energy it can store, so that that particular energy can be utilized even in the adult or the imago stage. And after the formation of the cocoon, it will slit out the cocoon and the imago will be released. You can see that from the first instar to the fifth instar, it has grown about 10,000 times of its own length or of its own size. Okay, so with this, we are ending this particular topic and today's discussion. You may go through these following books for more references, for more information. Thank you. I will be back with some more topics in later on.